The morning of March 15, 2157 started like any other day at the Kepler Station monitoring facility. Dr. Sarah Chen sipped her coffee while reviewing the overnight sensor data from the outer rim detection arrays. The massive screens displayed the usual cosmic background radiation patterns, asteroid movements, and the steady pulse of distant stars. Nothing seemed out of place in the vast emptiness of space. At exactly 0847 hours, everything changed. The first anomaly appeared as a slight distortion in Sector 7G, roughly 2.3 million kilometers from Earth's outermost defensive perimeter. The sensors registered it as a gravitational wave, but the pattern was wrong. Natural gravitational waves from collapsing stars or black hole mergers had predictable signatures. This was different. It pulsed with mathematical precision, like a heartbeat made of bent spacetime. Sarah frowned and ran the data through the analysis computers 3 times. Each result confirmed what she hoped was impossible. The distortion was artificial. Something massive was manipulating gravity itself, and it was moving toward Earth at a speed that defied conventional physics. Within minutes, the distortion multiplied. 1 became 10. 10 became 50. By 0900 hours, the detection arrays screamed warnings as hundreds of gravitational anomalies appeared across a front spanning 12 light minutes. Each signature indicated an object roughly the size of a city, yet somehow invisible to electromagnetic sensors. They existed only as shadows in the fabric of space itself. The emergency protocols activated automatically. Red lights bathed the monitoring station as alarms echoed through the corridors. Sarah's hands moved with practiced efficiency, routing the data to the Global Defense Network, the United Nations Space Command, and every major observatory on Earth. The message that accompanied the data was simple but terrifying: first contact scenario confirmed. Unknown vessels approaching at 0.15 C. ETA to Earth, 6 hours. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez received the alert while reviewing fleet deployments in his office at UNSC headquarters in Geneva. A career military officer who had spent 40 years preparing for this exact moment, he read the report twice before the reality sank in. Humanity was no longer alone, and their visitors were not sending peaceful greetings. The alien fleet moved with purpose that chilled experienced strategists. They approached in a perfect formation, maintaining exact distances between vessels despite traveling at 15% of light speed. Their trajectory aimed directly for Earth's solar system, making no attempt at communication or course correction. Most troubling of all, they had appeared simultaneously across multiple sectors, suggesting coordination that spanned vast distances instantaneously. Within an hour, every major government on Earth had been briefed. Emergency sessions convened in capitals across the globe as world leaders grappled with humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. The scenarios they had prepared for involved radio signals, distant observations, or perhaps the discovery of ancient artifacts. None had anticipated a massive fleet appearing without warning and racing toward Earth with obvious hostile intent. The scientific community scrambled to understand how the aliens had achieved faster-than-light travel and gravity manipulation. Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, analyzed the sensor data with growing amazement and terror. The energy requirements for such technology exceeded anything humans could imagine. These beings commanded forces that could reshape solar systems. Meanwhile, the Global Defense Network began the largest military mobilization in human history. Every operational spacecraft, from aging patrol vessels to the newest Dreadnought-class battleships, received immediate deployment orders. The Luna shipyards worked frantically to arm civilian vessels with whatever weapons could be mounted quickly. Mining ships became missile platforms. Cargo haulers transformed into troop transports. Even the ancient orbital platforms from the resource wars of 2089 were reactivated and supplied with nuclear warheads. As the hours passed, the alien fleet's composition became clearer. Long-range sensors detected vessels of varying sizes, from fighter-sized craft to massive structures that dwarfed Earth's largest space stations. The largest ships appeared to be over 50 kilometers long, bristling with energy signatures that suggested weapon systems beyond human comprehension. The smaller vessels numbered in the thousands, swarming around the capital ships like angry insects. The first attempts at communication began immediately. Radio transmissions in hundreds of languages and mathematical concepts flooded toward the approaching fleet. Scientists transmitted prime numbers, the periodic table, musical scales, and artistic images representing humanity's greatest achievements. The responses were silence and steady approach. Whatever these beings wanted, they were not interested in dialogue. By noon, Earth's combined military forces had assembled the largest fleet in human history. Nearly 3,000 vessels of various sizes formed defensive perimeters around Earth, Luna, and Mars. The sight was magnificent and desperate. Humanity's children spread across space in metal shells, armed with fusion weapons and electromagnetic railguns, preparing to face an enemy whose capabilities they could barely comprehend. Admiral Rodriguez established his command center on the battleship Prometheus, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. As reports flowed in from across the solar system, he felt the weight of species' survival on his shoulders. The tactical display showed humanity's forces as tiny dots compared to the approaching alien armada. Every strategic analysis concluded the same thing: conventional warfare would be suicide. Yet humanity possessed one advantage their enemies might not expect. The species that had crawled from primitive caves to conquer their solar system would not surrender without a fight. Every man, woman, and child on Earth understood what was coming. The factories that had once produced consumer goods now churned out ammunition and spare parts. Scientists who had spent careers studying peaceful applications of technology now turned their knowledge to weapons of unprecedented destruction. The alien fleet maintained its course with mechanical precision. No deviation. No acknowledgement of humanity's frantic preparations. They simply continued their relentless advance, counting down the hours until arrival. In command centers across Earth, military leaders watched the tactical displays and prepared for what might be humanity's final battle. Dr. Chen remained at her monitoring station, tracking the aliens' approach with scientific precision even as fear gnawed at her mind. The gravitational signatures grew stronger by the hour, warping local space in ways that made nearby asteroids drift from their orbits. Whatever powered these ships operated on principles that challenged fundamental physics. Humanity faced beings whose technology was like magic compared to their own capabilities. As the afternoon wore on, the mood in defensive positions shifted from fear to grim determination. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They had reached for the stars despite every obstacle the universe threw at them. If these aliens thought they could simply sweep aside the human race without consequence, they were about to learn a painful lesson about the species they had chosen to threaten. The countdown continued. 5 hours. 4 hours. 3 hours remaining until the alien fleet reached Earth's outer defensive perimeter. In those final hours, humanity would discover what it truly meant to fight for survival against impossible odds. The aliens had given them 6 hours of warning. They would soon learn that 6 hours was enough time for humanity to prepare a welcome they would never forget. 3 hours before contact, humanity's desperate preparations reached fever pitch across the solar system. In the orbital factories around Jupiter, workers who had never seen combat loaded fusion warheads onto cargo ships with shaking hands. These were miners, engineers, and technicians who had signed up to build humanity's future among the stars. Now they prepared weapons that could crack moons if necessary. Commander Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the destroyer Defiance, watching her crew make final systems checks. At 28, she was among the youngest ship commanders in the fleet, promoted rapidly due to her exceptional tactical skills and steady nerves under pressure. Her ship carried experimental plasma cannons that had never been tested in actual combat. Today would be their trial by fire. The alien fleet's behavior became increasingly ominous as they drew closer. Advanced sensors detected energy buildups within their largest vessels, suggesting they were charging weapons systems of enormous power. The mathematical precision of their formation never wavered, even as they navigated around planetary bodies and asteroid fields. These beings controlled technology that operated like extensions of their will. Dr. Hawthorne worked frantically in her laboratory beneath CERN, trying to understand the physics behind the alien propulsion systems. If humanity could decode even a fraction of their technology, it might provide the edge needed for survival. Her team analyzed the gravitational distortions, searching for weaknesses or patterns they could exploit. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The aliens weren't just manipulating gravity, they were somehow treating space and time as malleable substances. Their ships existed partially outside normal spacetime, which explained why electromagnetic sensors couldn't detect them directly. They were literally sailing through dimensions that human science barely acknowledged existed. Fighting them would be like trying to shoot ghosts with conventional weapons. On Mars, the mining colonies received evacuation orders that sparked panic and defiance in equal measure. Governor Chen Wei faced an impossible choice: abandon the red planet's 2 million inhabitants to certain death, or defend positions that tactical analysts deemed hopeless. The Martian Defense Force consisted of 12 aging patrol ships and a handful of ground-based missile batteries. Against a fleet that could manipulate space itself, they might as well throw rocks. Wei chose to fight. The colonists who had spent decades transforming Mars from a barren wasteland into humanity's second home would not flee without resistance. Every mining laser was converted into a weapon. Construction mechs were fitted with improvised armor and rocket launchers. If the aliens wanted Mars, they would have to take it from the hands of people who had bled to make it habitable. The Luna Defense Platform, humanity's most powerful space-based weapon system, charged its main cannon for what might be its only shot. The massive electromagnetic accelerator could launch projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, potentially penetrating even advanced alien shielding. Admiral Rodriguez authorized the platform to fire at maximum power, consequences be damned. The energy requirements would drain half of Luna's power grid, but humanity needed every possible advantage. As the 2-hour mark approached, the first direct confrontation occurred near the asteroid belt. A squadron of human reconnaissance ships encountered the alien fleet's advance scouts. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the light cruiser Endeavour, found herself face-to-face with technology that defied comprehension. The alien scout ships were elegant curves of what appeared to be living metal, flowing like mercury while maintaining structural integrity impossible with no materials. They moved without visible propulsion, gliding through space as if friction and inertia were merely suggestions. When Santos ordered her ships to intercept, the aliens responded with weapons that bent the fundamental forces of reality. Beams of twisted space struck the human vessels, causing their hulls to age centuries in seconds. Metal corroded to dust instantly while electronic systems suffered temporal displacement that aged their components beyond function. The Endeavour's sister ship, the Discovery, simply ceased to exist in a flash of inverted light that left no debris field behind. Santos ordered an emergency retreat, but not before her sensors recorded crucial data about alien capabilities. The scout ships possessed defensive systems that warped incoming projectiles through space, causing missiles to emerge from impossible angles or sometimes not emerge at all. Traditional kinetic weapons were useless against enemies who treated causality as a flexible concept. The news of humanity's first engagement spread through the defensive fleet within minutes. The aliens' technological superiority was even greater than feared. Weapons that could manipulate time itself meant conventional tactics were not just inadequate, they were completely irrelevant. Humanity needed new strategies based on principles their enemies might not expect. Dr. Chen at the monitoring station detected additional alien activities as their main fleet approached Earth's outer perimeter. Smaller vessels detached from the primary formation, spreading throughout the solar system in coordinated sweeps. These appeared to be reconnaissance units, scanning human positions and cataloging defensive preparations. The aliens were studying their prey before beginning the hunt. The psychological impact on Earth's population was immediate and severe. News networks struggled to maintain calm while reporting that humanity faced extinction at the hands of beings whose technology resembled magic. Riots erupted in major cities as people demanded impossible guarantees of safety. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from divine judgment to humanity's ascension to a higher plane of existence. Scientists begged for calm while admitting they understood almost nothing about their attackers. President Sarah Mitchell addressed the world from the White House bunker, her words broadcast to every corner of human civilization. She spoke of humanity's indomitable spirit, of the courage that had carried them from cave dwellings to the stars. Her message was simple but powerful: we have faced extinction before and survived. We will face it again today, and we will prevail. This is not the end of humanity's story, this is the chapter where we prove we deserve our place among the stars. Admiral Rodriguez received reports from observation posts throughout the solar system as alien scouts probed human defenses. The enemy was methodical, testing response times and weapon capabilities without committing to full engagement. They studied human technology with the detached interest of scientists examining insects. This clinical approach was somehow more chilling than obvious hostility would have been. The defensive preparations reached their climax as the 1-hour mark approached. Every human vessel capable of carrying weapons had been deployed. The civilian population of Earth's orbital habitats evacuated to underground shelters on the planet's surface. Luna's cities sealed their domes and prepared for siege conditions. Mars colonies armed themselves for ground combat that would likely be their final act of defiance. In the asteroid belt, mining crews made a decision that would define human character in this dark hour. Rather than flee, they chose to weaponize their equipment and join the fight. Massive mining charges became improvised bombs. Industrial lasers were reconfigured as weapons. The miners who had spent their lives extracting resources from dead rocks now prepared to extract a price from humanity's enemies. Captain Santos, her ship damaged but still functional, volunteered to lead the first wave of attacks despite her encounter with alien scouts. Her crew, shaken but determined, worked to modify their remaining weapons based on the intelligence they had gathered. If conventional physics didn't apply to the aliens, perhaps unconventional tactics might surprise them. Dr. Hawthorne made a breakthrough in her analysis of alien technology that offered a glimmer of hope. The beings' manipulation of space and time required enormous energy expenditures, suggesting their seemingly magical abilities had limits. More importantly, their dimensional shifting seemed to follow patterns that might be predictable with sufficient computational power. Humanity's quantum computers began calculating targeting solutions for enemies who existed partially outside normal space. The final hour began with humanity's combined fleets taking defensive positions around Earth, Luna, and Mars. 3,000 ships representing the pinnacle of human engineering faced an enemy whose technology was generations ahead of anything in human arsenals. The odds were impossible, the enemy incomprehensible, and the stakes absolute. Yet across the solar system, from Earth's gleaming orbital habitats to Mars' red mining colonies, humanity prepared to fight with everything they possessed. They would discover in the coming battle that superior technology meant nothing against the fury of a species that refused to surrender. The aliens had given humanity 6 hours to prepare for extinction. Instead, they had given them time to prepare for war. The alien fleet crossed into Earth's outer defensive perimeter at exactly 1,447 hours, and humanity's response was immediate and overwhelming. Admiral Rodriguez gave the order that echoed across every human vessel in the solar system: all ships, open fire. Show them what humanity is made of. The Luna defense platform fired first, its massive electromagnetic cannon sending a tungsten projectile toward the alien flagship at 12% of light speed. The aliens' response demonstrated why they had been so confident in their approach. The projectile simply vanished as it entered a sphere of twisted space around their largest vessel, emerging from a dimensional fold to strike one of their own smaller ships instead. But humanity had learned from Captain Santos' encounter with the scouts. Dr. Hawthorne's calculations had been transmitted to every vessel in the fleet, providing targeting algorithms designed to compensate for dimensional displacement. The second wave of attacks came from multiple angles simultaneously, overwhelming the aliens' ability to redirect every incoming threat. The destroyer Defiance under Commander Park scored the first confirmed kill when her experimental plasma cannons punched through an alien escort vessel's defenses. The enemy ship's elegant curves crumpled like paper as superheated gas burned through whatever exotic materials formed its hull. The destruction proved the aliens could die, and humanity's morale soared across the entire fleet. The aliens' retaliation was swift and devastating. Beams of temporal distortion swept across human formations, aging entire sections of ships to dust in seconds. The battlecruiser Sovereign simply crumbled as its hull experienced 1,000 years of decay in moments. But, for every human vessel destroyed, 2 more moved in to take its place, firing everything they had at targets that danced through dimensions. On Mars, Governor Wei watched the orbital battle unfold while preparing for ground invasion. The alien fleet had detached several city-sized vessels that descended toward the red planet's surface, their intention obvious. The Martian colonies would not be spared simply because they posed minimal military threat. This was not conquest, it was extermination. The first alien lander touched down in the Hellas Basin, disgorging creatures that defied biological classification. They moved like liquid metal given form, flowing across the Martian landscape with predatory grace. Each stood 3 meters tall with appendages that shifted function as needed, tools, weapons, or sensory organs depending on the situation. They communicated through harmonic frequencies that made human observers physically ill. Martian Defense Force units engaged the aliens with everything they possessed. Mining mechs wielding improvised weapons charged into combat against enemies whose bodies flowed around incoming fire. Human soldiers discovered that the aliens' shapeshifting abilities had limits. Sufficient kinetic force could disrupt their molecular cohesion temporarily, creating windows for effective attacks. Corporal James Martinez, a former Earth military veteran turned Mars mining supervisor, led a squad of colonists in the first successful ground engagement against alien forces. Using industrial explosives and construction equipment, they managed to destroy an entire alien patrol unit. The victory cost them dearly. Half his squad died in the process, but it proved the invaders were not invincible. Back in Earth orbit, the space battle had evolved into a chaotic melee spanning thousands of cubic kilometers. Human ships darted between massive alien vessels, using their superior numbers and desperate courage to compensate for technological inferiority. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species with crude weapons. Instead, they encountered an enemy that fought with calculated fury and innovative tactics. Captain Santos led a squadron of damaged vessels in a suicide run against one of the alien command ships. Her modified targeting systems, based on patterns observed during her earlier encounter, allowed her weapons to track targets through their dimensional shifts. The attack succeeded in crippling the enemy vessel's propulsion systems, causing it to drop back into normal space where concentrated human firepower could reach it. The alien ship's destruction sent shockwaves through their formation as they realized their technological advantages were being neutralized by human adaptability. The invaders had conquered dozens of worlds with similar displays of overwhelming force, but none of their previous enemies had responded with such immediate innovation and suicidal determination. Dr. Hawthorne's team achieved another breakthrough as the battle raged overhead. Analysis of debris from destroyed alien vessels revealed that their technology relied heavily on quantum entanglement across multiple dimensions. By introducing random quantum noise into local space, human forces could disrupt alien systems much more effectively than brute force attacks. The revelation spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Ships began modifying their reactors to emit quantum interference patterns, turning every human vessel into a weapon against alien technology. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Alien ships found themselves forced into normal space where human weapons could track and destroy them with conventional physics. The aliens adapted with frightening speed, altering their tactics to account for human interference techniques. They began firing weapons that existed as pure probability waves, striking targets across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Human ships started disappearing not through destruction but through probability collapse. They simply ceased to exist across all possible realities. Commander Park faced this new threat as probability weapons targeted the Defiance. Her crew worked frantically to maintain their ship's existence through quantum uncertainty, using principles that human science had barely begun to understand. The effort required perfect coordination between every system on the ship, turning space combat into an exercise in applied quantum mechanics. The tide of battle shifted multiple times as both sides adapted to new conditions. Humanity's greatest asset proved to be their ability to improvise and innovate under extreme pressure. Mining ships became missile platforms. Cargo haulers transformed into ramming vessels. Even civilian shuttles joined the fight, carrying nuclear warheads for close-range attacks against enemy vessels. The alien fleet, designed for quick conquest through technological superiority, found themselves engaged in a prolonged battle against an enemy that refused to acknowledge defeat. Their formations began to show strain as human attacks disrupted their precise coordination. Ships that had moved in perfect harmony now struggled to maintain formation while adapting to constantly changing human tactics. On Mars, the ground war intensified as more alien forces deployed from their landing craft. Governor Wei coordinated resistance from underground command centers while surface teams fought desperate holding actions. The alien superior individual capabilities were offset by human knowledge of local terrain and willingness to use environmental hazards as weapons. The battle for the Mariner Valley became legendary when mining teams triggered controlled landslides that buried entire alien formations. The invaders' ability to flow around obstacles meant nothing against millions of tons of rock moving at terminal velocity. Human defenders learned to use Mars itself as a weapon against enemies who had never encountered such environmental warfare. Admiral Rodriguez coordinated the overall defense from his flagship, which had taken severe damage but remained operational. Reports flooded in from across the solar system as humanity's defenders fought with everything they possessed. The aliens were learning to fear an enemy they had dismissed as primitive, but the human cost was enormous. Nearly half the defensive fleet had been destroyed or disabled. As the 6-hour mark approached, both sides prepared for the final phase of the battle. The aliens had expected quick victory followed by systematic extermination. Instead, they faced an enemy that grew more dangerous with every passing minute. Humanity had discovered something their invaders had never encountered in their conquest of other worlds: the fury of a species that refused to accept extinction. The real test was about to begin. 6 hours after first contact, the alien fleet that had approached Earth with absolute confidence found itself trapped in a grinding war of attrition against an enemy that fought like cornered animals. The invaders' technological superiority meant nothing against humanity's desperate innovation and willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. The turning point came when Dr. Hawthorne's team achieved their greatest breakthrough. Hidden in Earth's deepest research facilities, they had been analyzing quantum patterns from the alien technology while the battle raged overhead. Their discovery would change everything. The aliens' dimensional manipulation abilities required a quantum anchor point in normal space. If that anchor could be disrupted, their ships would be forced into conventional reality where human weapons could destroy them. The solution was elegant and terrifying. Earth's combined nuclear arsenal, designed to destroy planets, would be reconfigured to create a massive quantum disruption field. Every nuclear warhead in human space would detonate simultaneously at calculated points throughout the solar system, generating interference patterns that would strip the aliens of their dimensional advantages. Admiral Rodriguez received the proposal with grim understanding. The plan would work, but the electromagnetic pulses and quantum distortions would also cripple most human technology for months. Earth's orbital habitats would lose life support. Interplanetary communications would cease. Millions might die from the side effects, but the alternative was certain extinction for the entire species. The decision took 30 seconds. "Do it," Rodriguez ordered. "Signal all units to prepare for Operation Quantum Storm." Captain Santos, her ship barely holding together after hours of combat, volunteered to lead the delivery mission. The Endeavour and 12 other heavily damaged vessels would carry the modified warheads into the heart of the alien formation. None expected to survive, but their sacrifice would give humanity a fighting chance. The aliens detected the quantum disruption preparations and responded with everything they possessed. Massive beams of twisted space reached out from their command ships, attempting to destroy Earth's nuclear arsenal before it could be deployed. Human defenders threw themselves into the path of these weapons, using their ships as shields to protect the planet below. Commander Park's destroyer intercepted a temporal displacement beam aimed at Earth's primary nuclear facility. The Defiance aged 1,000 years in seconds, its crew dying as they became dust, but the weapon was absorbed and deflected. Similar sacrifices occurred across the solar system as humanity's defenders chose death over failure. On Mars, Governor Wei coordinated the planet's contribution to Operation Quantum Storm. Every nuclear reactor on the Red Planet would be overloaded simultaneously, adding their energy to the quantum disruption field. The Martian colonists worked frantically to position the reactors while fighting off alien ground forces that seemed to understand what humanity was planning. Corporal Martinez led a final assault against alien positions threatening the reactor sites. His improvised army of miners and technicians fought with tools meant for construction, not war. They died by the hundreds, but each sacrifice bought precious minutes for the technicians to complete their preparations. When Martinez fell, pierced by an alien weapon that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, his last words were instructions for targeting the enemy formation leaders. The countdown to quantum detonation began with 2 hours remaining until the aliens' original 6-hour deadline. Across human space, nuclear warheads were armed and positioned according to Dr. Hawthorne's precise calculations. The timing had to be perfect. Even nanosecond variations could allow some alien ships to escape back into their dimensional refuges. The aliens seemed to recognize their danger and launched their most desperate attack yet. Every ship in their fleet opened fire simultaneously, sending beams of pure probability toward Earth in an attempt to prevent the quantum storm. The barrage was designed to collapse the possibility of human victory across multiple realities, ensuring their defeat regardless of tactical outcomes. Humanity's response was characteristically stubborn. Every remaining human vessel positioned itself between Earth and the alien probability weapons. Ships that could barely maintain life support became shields for their home planet. Crews who had never trained for combat found themselves making split-second decisions that would determine species survival. The battleship Prometheus, Admiral Rodriguez's flagship, took 17 direct hits from probability weapons. Each strike erased portions of the ship from existence, but the remaining sections continued fighting with whatever systems survived. Rodriguez himself was caught in a probability collapse that aged him 30 years instantly, but he continued coordinating the defense from a command chair that flickered in and out of reality. Captain Santos reached the heart of the alien formation just as the quantum storm countdown entered its final minute. Her ship was a flying wreck held together by emergency patches and sheer determination, but the nuclear payload remained intact. The aliens concentrated their fire on the Endeavour, recognizing the threat it represented to their survival. Santos smiled as alien weapons tore her ship apart around her. She had been a mining engineer before the war, someone who built things rather than destroyed them. Today she would destroy something so completely that it would never threaten another world. Her finger hovered over the detonation switch as the countdown reached 0. "This is for every world you've conquered," she transmitted to the alien fleet. "And for every world you never will." The quantum storm erupted across the solar system simultaneously. Every nuclear warhead in human space detonated in perfect synchronization, creating interference patterns that reached into dimensions human science barely understood. The effect on the alien fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Ships that had flowed through space like living metal suddenly found themselves locked in normal reality. Their elegant curves became vulnerable to conventional physics. Human weapons that had been useless against dimensional phasing now tore through alien hulls like paper. The technological gods became mortal in an instant. The remaining human forces, their electronics fried by the quantum storm but their weapons still functional, pressed their advantage with savage determination. Ships dead in space used maneuvering thrusters to ram alien vessels. Ground forces on Mars emerged from their shelters to finish off alien troops trapped in normal space. Every human who could still fight threw themselves at enemies who suddenly looked vulnerable instead of invincible. The alien fleet, reduced to half its original strength and stripped of its technological advantages, made a decision their species had never been forced to make. For the first time in their conquest of dozens of worlds, they retreated. The surviving ships disengaged from combat and began accelerating away from Earth at their maximum conventional velocity. But humanity was not finished with them yet. The quantum storm had affected human technology differently than alien systems. While most advanced electronics were temporarily disabled, simple mechanical systems and basic computers remained functional. The Luna defense platform, designed with hardened systems for exactly this scenario, powered up its main cannon for one final shot. The electromagnetic projectile caught the alien flagship as it attempted to escape Earth's gravity well. Without dimensional phasing to protect it, the massive vessel split apart like a ripe fruit. The destruction of their command ship sent the remaining alien forces into full retreat, abandoning the solar system they had approached with such confidence 6 hours earlier. Earth's orbital habitats went dark as the quantum storm's effects spread through human space. Communications ceased. Life support systems failed. But, in emergency shelters across the planet, humanity celebrated their impossible victory. They had faced extinction and responded with fury that turned technological gods into fleeing refugees. Dr. Hawthorne emerged from her underground laboratory to find a world transformed. The quantum storm had disabled most of Earth's technology, but it had also given humanity something invaluable, proof that they could survive anything the universe threw at them. The aliens' retreat left behind wreckage containing technology that would advance human science by centuries. Admiral Rodriguez, aged beyond his years by probability weapons, surveyed the aftermath from his damaged flagship. The human fleet was devastated, with barely 300 vessels still capable of basic operations. Mars colonies reported massive casualties from the ground fighting. Earth's orbital infrastructure would take years to rebuild. But humanity had survived. The species that crawled from caves to conquer their solar system had faced beings with technology like magic and sent them running. The psychological impact would resonate through human culture for generations. They were not alone in the universe, but they had proven they deserved their place among the stars. Governor Way stood on the surface of Mars, watching the alien retreating ships disappear into the darkness between worlds. The Red Planet's colonies had paid a terrible price for victory, but they had earned something more valuable than technology or territory. They had earned respect from entities that had never respected anyone before. In the weeks that followed, as Earth slowly restored communications and power, the full scope of humanity's achievement became clear. An alien empire that had conquered dozens of worlds had been forced to retreat by a species they had considered primitive. The victory sent a message across the galaxy that would change everything: humanity was not prey. The aliens had given humanity 6 hours to prepare for extinction. Instead, those 6 hours had prepared humanity for their destiny among the stars. The war was over, but humanity's real journey was just beginning.